Hey guys, Kate here. Today I'm going to be answering questions from my third ever Q&A, Furry edition. These questions were asked either via YouTube or the Furry Amino app. So these first couple of questions are from Spear, who asks, how did you get into the furry fandom? I know a lot of people give the I loved Disney movies as a kid excuse, but honestly for me that was a big part of it. Since I was about 8, I wanted to be an artist, and I started drawing mainly Sonic the Hedgehog fan art. Then eventually started a DeviantArt account drawing Shark Tale fan art, one of my favorite animated Anthro movies. So I'd say DeviantArt mostly introduced me to the fandom, because I had no idea that there was a fandom that existed. How did you choose your fursona species? If you haven't seen my fursona, here's what she looks like. Actually, my fursona has gone through a lot of changes since I officially joined the fandom in January of this year. I started out as a very plain great white shark, similar to the style of my OC based off of the Shark Tale movie from DreamWorks. Then I wanted something a little bit more original, and I put my skin pattern design from my OC on a Mano kit. A Mano kit was an original species created by Dubmutt. So they had some rules for people who wanted to create their own Mano kits that I didn't agree with. I quickly decided to create a hybrid, but of what? I knew that it had to be part shark, because Shark Tale and sharks in general were such a big influence on me as a kid. But I also wanted something furry and cute. That's when I decided to make an otter, part shark, hybrid. I chose an otter because when I worked at Miller Park Zoo in Bloomington, they had a family of otters that I loved to watch. I loved to watch them swim around and act all cute. Thus, I created my current and only fursona. What song would you say best represents you? I would have to say Dreams Don't Turn to Dust by Owl City best represents me, because it encourages me to dream big and live life to the fullest. Flippers or fins? Fins, of course. And Spear's last question is, what made you decide to become a YouTuber? When I first started YouTube, I think I had more intention to get famous, but after being on the platform for about a year, I just do it for fun and try to brand myself with my content. Markiplier, Jacksepticeye, and Graveyard Girl are all huge inspirations to me and encouraged me to start a channel. Honestly, I hope Google doesn't ruin the platform completely in the future and starts to fully support YouTube creators. So those were all of Spear's questions. Next we have a question from I'm Fine, I Lied, I'm Dying Inside. That's literally their username. And they ask, if you were stuck on a desert island, what 3 things would you bring? The classic question. I think I would bring a lifetime supply of cooked and prepared macaroni and cheese, a life straw, and a paracord bracelet from Wazoo Survival Gear. If you haven't seen those, check out their website, they're insane. The next question comes from Aaron the Hyena. What has been the hardest artwork you have ever made? I really thought this was a good question, and I had to think about this one quite a lot because I've been in the art program so long. And honestly, none of the artwork that I've made for friends or for commissions have been that difficult. I think the hardest I've ever worked on an art project was probably the majority of my projects required for my typography and 3D design classes when I was in the graphic design program at Heartland and SIU. It was so freaking hard to create an original font that isn't ripping off someone else's design. As for 3D, I was fine working with clay, but we also used wire and solder, wood, bronze, and other materials for sculpting, and it was really, really challenging. Next question is from Patrick Deal. What is your favorite Sonic Adventure level? So if you guys have been up to date on the channel, I recently posted part 1 of my playthrough of Sonic Adventure DX for GameCube, and it's one of my favorite games. My favorite level is probably Sonic's story version of Casinoopolis, where you have to collect all the rings via playing the pinball tables. A lot of people hated that level, but I find it satisfying to collect a bunch of rings and then that that thing comes down and like shakes you and stuff. My favorite adventure field is Mystic Ruins. I also love the boss fight in the final story when you face off with perfect chaos. Thanks for your question, Patrick. Caddy Rock asks, have you told anyone, like friends, family, that you are a furry yet? And if so, what was their reaction? So this is really a big deal in the furry fandom, and well, at least for a lot of people, and I really don't understand why people play it up as this big deal that they're a furry. Like, it's really become a bit more mainstream now, and people treat it like a coming out thing, and I don't think that's really necessary. So I kind of just drop subtle hints to people that don't know that, but I don't make a big deal about it, because a lot of people like Disney movies and like cartoons, which a lot of cartoons are based on anthropomorphic animals, so like it's not that big a deal. I think the only people I've straight up told that I was a furry were my two sisters. Pretty much all of my friends know, because they're either furries themselves or they've just known me for a long time and it wasn't a big deal. I've sort of hinted at it towards my dad, mom, and grandparents, but I haven't really like told them much other than like I have a friend who makes fursuits and I like the art style. I mean, my family has pretty much known since I was little that, you know, I drew cartoons, and they don't have a problem with that. I did show my dad some fursuits and my grandparents too, and they just think they're really cool. Tangy LD asks, I noticed that you love sharks because they're a big part of your fursona. If you had to make a Sona or OC that wasn't a shark, what would it be, look like, act like, etc.? One of my older videos, I think it was about Shark Week or something, I said that I've loved sharks since probably 4th grade, and at that time I also loved big cats like tigers and leopards and 101 Dalmatians. I loved Dalmatians when I was a kid, and I still do, but I was like obsessed back then. I would probably make a fursona based on a Dalmatian, or maybe I'd be a tiger-leopard hybrid. She would probably act the same as me, but maybe a little more devious. For a Dalmatian, she would resemble the design of Dipstick and Domino from 101 Dalmatians. If it was a big cat hybrid, I would be blue and orange probably, because those are two of my favorite colors. Tangy also asks, where do you see your channel by this time next year? There is no telling what the state of YouTube will be by that time. I don't think anybody really knows, but I would like to be over 250 subscribers by this time next year. I also want to do more event vlogs like conventions. Next year, I'm actually planning to go to Gateway Fur Meet, which is in St. Louis, Missouri, and it would be my first furry convention. Next question is from Kyle the Husky. What did you want to be when you grew up? Did that stick? What are you pursuing now or wanting to pursue? When I was really young, I thought a lot about being a veterinarian or an artist. And then when I was in high school, I was thinking marine biology and moving to South Carolina, which I was actually born there, but not raised there. We moved back shortly after I was born. Then I wanted to work with sharks and marine life, but I really didn't have the resources to do that because we didn't know anybody in South Carolina, and I had never really been there. My family doesn't live there. So I decided to stay in Illinois and pursue graphic design. I started to pursue graphic design at first, and then after about 3-4 years of being in the program, I hated it. I changed my major to rehabilitation services instead because I had already obtained work experience in that field. So it wasn't really, there was some new stuff, but some stuff that I had already done. And that combined with my computer skills just really worked out for me. Ree the Sergal asks, what's your favorite storyline in a game? My favorite type of storyline is when there's like true suspense or a real twist in what you think will happen. A good example of both of these is The Evil Within or Outlast, where you think you know what's going on and then something new happens or is revealed and it pulls you deeper into the story. And when I say true suspense, I don't mean for jump scares necessarily, because I feel like those could be cheap sometimes. The only way that true suspense is achieved with jump scares is if they make sense to the story and they're well placed in the story. You want something to happen for just the right amount of time or long enough so you forget about it, and then it surprises you later in the story, and then you're like, oh, now I get it, or something like that. It's hard to write that in a story that really does that well, but it's not impossible. Like, people have done it, obviously, but it takes some more thought for sure. Okay, so we have a couple of questions from Hard Luck the Semi-Truck. Nice username. If you had the money, would you get a suit? And they're referring to a fursuit here. Yes, I am actually in the process of commissioning a full fursuit from my friend Ree. If you guys don't know who Ree is, she was in my Eclipse Comic Con vlog video thing that I made this past weekend. She owns a couple of fursuits, but she also makes them, and it's something that I've wanted to do since I joined the fandom. I know you don't have to have a fursuit to be a furry, but I think it's a really cool aspect of the fandom. Hard Luck then asks, do you have any friends who live nearby who are also in the fandom? I do, actually. I met Ree on Furry Amino, and she actually lived only about 45 minutes away from me. I wish I would have met her sooner because I'm almost done with school in Carbondale, and we probably won't get to hang out as much when I move back, so that's disappointing, but I'm glad I met her. I met a few other Illinois furries, but they live a bit farther. We're hoping to meet up for a convention someday. I think that'd be a lot of fun. And the last question of this Q&A, if the hypotenuse of a triangle is 32 and the legs are each the same length, how furry are you? My answer is confuzzled. Thanks to everyone who asked a question. This was one of the most fun Q&As I've had in a while. Thank you guys so much for all the questions. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.